All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Salesforce.org Architect Academy, where today we're going to be talking about integrating Salesforce and Tableau. I'm Tom Letty. I'm the Director of Strategy and Digital Transformation for Salesforce.org Professional Services. And John, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's John Denby. I'm based here in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm a principal solution engineer. I work specifically in a group we call Q Branch. What that means is I get to work with dev teams and sales teams and our marketing teams about the kind of integrated demo solutions we bring to customers and show our products from. So.
Very cool. All right. So we'll start out forward-looking statement. We've all seen this before. Just make sure you're not making any purchases based on anything we don't already have for sale. And again, thank you to everybody for joining these sessions. I know we've been getting great feedback, and I'm glad to hear that they're helpful for everybody. Please continue to give feedback, continue to spread the word, and keep joining. A little bit of background about Architect Academy. So the goal here is to increase the success of our Salesforce.org customers, although this could be really any Salesforce customer and partner, by expanding the knowledge of Salesforce architects and also increasing the number of architects who serve nonprofit and education industries. We do this through a variety of in-person and virtual events, mostly virtual lately, but hopefully more in-person ones coming soon. And then we've also got some content and other collaboration type things that we do. So make sure to check out our blog and white paper series. Join our group, Architect Academy, in the Power of Us hub as well. And so today's agenda, we're going to talk about the 4 pillars for Salesforce and Tableau integration. We'll talk about like a few of these scenarios. We'll do a whiteboarding session, and then maybe even a quick demo, and then we'll talk about where to find some additional resources. So, John, I don't know if you want to start with the first pillar, or
Yeah. So we can talk. I guess you have them listed here. So let's just let's go through the first one, which is data sync. So what's interesting about data sync is you've got to get your data somehow, excuse me, out of Salesforce. Tableau itself has a connector that we can use, out-of-the-box connector that will access all of the core CRM objects that are there. So if you built some custom objects or things like that, you can use our connector to be able to do that. It does have some limitations. If you're talking about a large amount of data, our connector probably is not the best place to use, or at least the best place to start. You're probably going to be looking at a data strategy a little bit more akin to how some of our enterprise customers do, but probably for most nonprofits and people like that, depending on the amount of data, our Tableau connector is going to be fine. And what it's going to do is it's going to extract the data from Salesforce into what we call a Tableau hyper extract. It's a very fast in-memory extract that allows us to get that data and then be able to churn it inside of Tableau over and over again. Now, I do want to at least highlight a couple of options. If for some reason you happen to be a customer that or organization that has a lot of data, and you find that the extract approach with our out-of-the-box connector is chugs a little bit, there's 2 additional really great solutions out there. One is Heroku Connect, where you can take Heroku Connect and replicate your Salesforce data directly into a Postgres database. With that, we would be able to connect to that data in a live fashion with our Postgres connector. So we would kind of bypass that. We would put most of the heavy lifting on Heroku Connect to drop the data in Postgres for us to be able to look at. And if you know anything about that solution, the cool thing is it's bidirectional. So if you had another use case where you wanted to use that data, you could from that perspective. The other thing we see a lot of our larger customers do is, with the advent of of cloud-based storage. So things like Snowflake or Redshift or Google BigQuery. The challenge with that is, of course, you're going to need some type of an ETL solution to take the data from Salesforce into Snowflake or Google BigQuery or Redshift or something like that. Like I said, that's really for our largest customers. But the good news about that is those are also solutions we could connect to live. So you have a couple of options when you look at what you're trying to do, but certainly starting with the Tableau connector is great. I love that you're doing this on the fly too. This is like, I need a copy of this when we're done. So, so
Now,
that's the data connectivity piece.
and also my cat came to say hello.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So any guidance around like number of records or volumes or anything for where it makes sense to start looking at a different option, or is it just more of a trial and error thing where you start to notice this isn't performing as well as you thought it would?
Well, there's a couple of things. So one of the things our connector in its current iteration can't do is it doesn't do what we call data source filtering. And what a data source filter for us is the ability to say, just give me last year's records in this object, or give me all of the records that are where pick a field equals closed or something like that. And so with our connector, you're going to get everything. And if you're an organization that's been using Salesforce for a long time, you may be pulling over a lot of data that you don't want to pull over. Now, we do incremental refreshing, so that mitigates some of that. But we also see customers, it depends on how fresh you want that data as well. Our connector is probably really good for historical data that you might want to synchronize on a daily basis from that perspective. But then if you have a data freshness need where you need to look at the data in more real time or closer to real time, that's where Heroku Connect is going to be great for you, because it's almost near real time sync. And then once it's in the Postgres, we'll look at it from a live perspective. So that's really gives you those kind of two kind of bumpers to think about. And we are working on our connector so that we can add those data source filtering features and stuff like that. But that'll be later this year before those show up.
And then, yeah, and an ETL tool is obviously going to vary by what tool it is, but
right.
It's got that you should be able to do any kind of like filtering.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if we came back to the next one, anything else on?
No, you got a great setup already for data connectivity.
Awesome. And the next one was security and networking.
Yeah. So this is pretty straightforward. If you think about Salesforce is a SaaS-based application, which unless you've taken and done advanced configurations where you secure it by IP or something, most people are going to connect to Salesforce from almost anywhere in the world. They just have to have access to the internet. If you happen to be using Tableau Server, Tableau Online, which is our SaaS-based offering that's in the cloud, then at that point you are golden, because just like Salesforce, all you have to have is a point of presence on the internet. You go to online.tableau.com and you put in your user credentials and you're into Tableau Online. So the access issue is really not a big thing for our Tableau Online customers. Right. Where it becomes an issue is really around our Tableau server customers. Those people that actually have a Tableau server in more of a traditional on-prem data networking data center, or they're using it using Tableau server and they're running it in a public cloud. Most of those situations, you've got network security involved. You may have your own network. You may have firewalls and access points and things like that. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to customers about integrating, they go through all of these other steps. Like they do the data connectivity, they get the data out, they do the authentication, which we'll talk about here in a minute. They do the embedding, but then they don't think about access. And then what happens is they roll it out, and then all of a sudden, Susie somewhere tries to see some Tableau content that's embedded in Salesforce, and they can't see it. And it's because they didn't account for those firewalls. And so there's lots of ways. We have documentation on our website. You can do things like reverse proxies. You can, if it's in the cloud, in a public cloud, you can do a VPC tunnel or something like that, or you can do VPN. It's actually, that's how Tableau and Tableau ourselves, and we connect to Salesforce. We have to be on a VPN to be able to see any Tableau content inside of Salesforce. And if I happen not to have my VPN on and I go into Salesforce, I just see a big blank box where Tableau would normally be. So that's the other solution is you just have to understand if you're going to use one of those situations like VPN or a reverse proxy or whatever you're going to use, you just need to understand what the user experience is going to be so that those users are aware that, maybe when they're looking for that Tableau visual or something, why is it not there? Well, it's because they don't have their VPN on or something like that.
So that makes sense. So for VPN, if it's virtual public cloud, yeah, you can, or if it's a public cloud, rather, you can do VPN or VPC.
Yeah, VPC. Yeah.
This really, if it's online, it's pretty much it's an HTTPS connection.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? And then this one here, and this I know I've run into this a few times myself, and it was the exact scenario that you mentioned where, usually if you've got, especially for an enterprise organization, you've got your externally facing your internet firewall, and then you've got your intranet firewall. And over here, this is your DMZ, which is your demilitarized zone where internet
yeah, there you go.
Patients can live. And then back over here, you've got kind of your internal, like you have to be on your intranet to see it. And you can either put your server in your DMZ, in which case you still have to get through this firewall, so you could use a reverse proxy or whatever you need to do for that. But if it's back here, you've got some additional concerns. So then,
yeah, additional considerations to have to navigate through. And I've seen quite the situation where you run into interesting networking configurations.
Yeah. And it's exactly what you said too, where somebody all of a sudden they're on your network internally and they are looking at their dashboards and everything's showing up just fine, and then they try to look at it from home and they can log into Salesforce, and then on Tableau they're not not seeing the dashboard anymore, and they can't figure out what the difference is. So yeah, these are if you've got your Tableau server, and really same thing kind of applies here when you've got your something in a public cloud, because you've still got the firewalls and everything. They're just maybe not your own firewalls that you're maintaining yourself, but you still have to account for them when you're connecting to something like that. So
yeah, there you go. No, that's great diagram as well.
Awesome. All right, now what did we have next? Was
access single sign-on. Yeah, this is a hot topic for us because until a couple of years ago, our recommendation to most customers was to use a Canvas oriented app, and so we were doing server-sided trust authentication, but as probably and everybody else knows, those don't play as well in the Lightning framework. And so as we modernized what we were doing, we went to a SAML recommended approach where you're actually using you're doing client-side authentication. And so when I talk to customers about this, it's usually a pretty straightforward question. what are you using to authenticate in Salesforce? And then I asked the same question, what are you using to authenticate in Tableau? And the hope is that the answer is I'm using the same thing, and that it's probably an IDP that is a SAML-based IDP. With that, then that allows us to use kind of a same SAML in-frame authentication if you want to do some embedding and stuff like that. So we can pass SAML authentication tokens back and forth from that perspective. And then that works really well within the Lightning framework. Salesforce identity, which I would imagine if speaking specifically to salesforce.org, if you're using any kind of IDP or SAML authentication, you may be using Salesforce identity since it's built into the platform. If that's the case, we've got great documentation that tells you how to configure Tableau to use Salesforce identity, and it just pops right in. And then we're really kind of cooking with gas at that point, because Salesforce is the source IDP. We're using Salesforce as the IDP that we're connected to.
So Salesforce is the IDP, then it's basically just sending the information over to Tableau that says, yes, this person's authenticated. They're okay to log in, go ahead and show them what they need to see.
Yeah. If you're not using Salesforce, then what we have to do is, it depends on so I do have to give at least a little bit of a disclaimer. So most IDPs out there, Ping, Okta, OneLogin, I could go down that list. Most of them support in-frame authentication, which is what you want if you want that seamless SSO experience where we just authenticate somebody and it works on Salesforce Mobile and it works in the browser, and it's just a very seamless experience where both Tableau and Salesforce happen to be using the same IDP, and the IDP supports in-frame authentication. There is one out there that doesn't. That happens to be Microsoft, and Microsoft's Azure AD product doesn't support in-frame authentication. So it causes us a little bit more of a challenge if you happen to be using Azure AD. But if you are, we've got some documentation out there to help you walk through that as well.
Okay. So if I am using one of the, like an Okta or one that does support this, essentially what I would do here is I would go to log into Salesforce, because that's what I'm, and then it's going to kick me over to my identity provider, ask for my network credentials or whatever. That's going to then authenticate me, let me log into Salesforce. And is it going to log me into Tableau at the same time, or is it only when I try to access it?
Only when you try to access the content. So at the point that you would, like in that LWC box, the point you would actually open up and look at some visualization, then we would pass the authentication request through the frame where it's embedded. And then Tableau would say, oh, you've already logged in to Okta, or you've already logged into Ping. Now let me go ahead and I'll pass you through and authenticate you at that point in Tableau. And so then you would be an authenticated user in both systems. And that's an important distinction, because for those, we didn't cover it back on the data security side. But one of the things is Tableau has a really robust row-level security model. And so if you did need to secure your data because your users authenticated both in Salesforce and Tableau, you can leverage the Tableau row-level security model. But yeah, as soon as that user goes to visualize something, we're going to pass that authentication and then authenticate them into Tableau.
Okay. Do I have to have the same username in both?
Yeah. It's pretty much the best way to make sure that we're passing over the right credentials and stuff like that. I've seen customers that will, they're legacy Tableau customers that might have set their server up as an Active Directory server back in the day. And then they go and they say, okay, well, I'm just going to apply a single sign-on top of my Active Directory. And they're used to using just regular user accounts like JDemby, and but Salesforce is using a fully qualified email address. Those two don't tend to compute well in the same SAML world. So what I've seen those customers end up doing is just going and changing the users in Tableau to match their users in Salesforce.
And I want to say, I remember having to do that, and it actually makes sense if the idea is that you're going to be authenticating using the same SAML token
Right.
From Salesforce to Tableau. It has to have some way of recognizing who you are in both systems and matching it up. And then, like you said, security comes in because we've got the same, on the Salesforce side, it's you can set up that same like row level security where if I want to run a report that says show me all accounts, well, maybe I'm only authorized to see a subset of those accounts. And you can set up the same security in Tableau where I'm not going to be able to see them on a Tableau dashboard either if I'm not authorized. Right. Now, you do have to set that up in both places, right? I think.
Right. Yeah, you do. There's no we don't have a way. Once you extract that data back when we talked about the first step, and it comes out of Salesforce, or however it comes out into a Tableau extract or into a Heroku Postgres or into a cloud DB storage type thing, that data is no longer subject to the Salesforce security model because it's left the Salesforce building, I guess, or left the domain. But the good news is, like I said, because the user's authenticated also in Tableau, we have a really robust security model that you could go back and apply to if you wanted, and still get that same sense of security that you have from a Salesforce perspective. We are looking at how we could do something in the future that would allow us to plug a little bit more directly into the Salesforce security model, but that's a little bit further down the road.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But I mean, the nice thing is it's doable. So you don't have to worry about anybody getting access to some data they shouldn't be able to have access to just because it, like you said, once it leaves it's left the building from Salesforce. Well, yeah, technically Salesforce isn't responsible, but as long as you have somebody that knows how to configure security on the tab, you can still keep it just as secure as it is on either side. So
yeah.
Awesome. All right. And then we had UI embedding.
Yeah, the embedding. So if you've done all three of these, the embedding is actually the easiest of the four areas because now you've got the authentication, you got the access, you know what the data is that you're doing. So we made embedding really simple. Back in the summer, we released a Lightning Web component for Tableau that you can download from the App Exchange and install it in your org. And it literally allows you to drag over the LWC, drop it where you want inside the Lightning application framework. It works on Engagement Cloud, also formerly known as Communities. Works in Lightning app, however you want to use it on an object. And all you have to do at that point is copy and paste the share URL from the Tableau server into the Lightning Web component, and you've now embedded Tableau wherever you need to in Salesforce. It's pretty slick. If for some reason you need more control, like there are some aspects of the LWC, like for instance, we give you a single filtering capability when you embed it on an object. So you can match a Salesforce field to a Tableau field, and we can do that when you embed it on an object record. But let's just say, for instance, you want multiple filters, or you've got some complexity that you want to do with the embedding. You really want to dial in a certain look or feel, or you want to do something with our JavaScript API, then VisualForce is still a very viable capability to do. And you can do VisualForce with a simple parameterized URL with as many filters as you want, all the way to using our JavaScript API to really turn all the knobs on a visual in terms of turning things on and off and how you interact with it and all those things like that. But we wanted to make it simple for customers to be able to, and users to be able to get insights into Salesforce. So we took the complexity or the simplicity, I think, of what was part of VisualForce, and we just made it an LWC. So,
and that's this one here, right?
yeah, yep, yeah. You just search the App Exchange for Tableau or Tableau LWC. It's a little bit easier to find it if you do LWC. If you do Tableau, you'll see a option to come up first for like a trial, and the second option you'll see it says components, and it's the LWC. But
Nice.
you just install it directly into whatever org you want to install it in, and you're ready to go.
And like you said, I think this is going to cover probably 90 to 95% of the use cases out there, where it's like, I need to see this visualization. You've got the options to filter it by a specific field and everything else. If you do want to get super creative, you still got the original option of VisualForce. So yeah, and is this,
there's lots of documentation out there on how to do it with VisualForce. We can even I can give you a link to a presentation that I did at one of our Tableau conferences a couple of years ago that explains the whole VisualForce approach very cleanly. But yeah, we want you to use the LWC. We have a roadmap with it. We have some things that we'd like to be able to do with it. It is available on GitHub. So if you want to leverage it as well and maybe put a wrapper around it or do some things with it, we can certainly encourage you to do that as well.
That would be awesome. In fact, you know what? If you have those links and you can send them to me, what we'll do is I'll put them in the related materials list.
Okay, I will.
Awesome, thanks. And then this, did you say you had a demo of the LWC?
Yeah, I can. Let me do this. Let's see here. It's not the prettiest demo in the world, but it is a functional demo. So let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. And then I am going to present and pick a screen. It's got a pretty little sailboat. And then I'm going to start with a simple viz. Let me just kind of explain what this is. So I'll go ahead and I'll move that into the window here. And so what I've done with this viz is I have connected it to, if I go back over here to data source, I used our data connector to be able to go connect to Salesforce. When you connect to Salesforce, we actually now use an OAuth connection. So we authenticate in the browser. We have some standard connections up here where you can just drag over some things that are pre-joined per se. But if I wanted to build out a full, and I'm connected to what we call a simple demo org. So there's just a lot of objects in this sucker. But if I wanted to, I could drag them over and I could, in a more traditional way, join them back together so that they would give me all of the data that I'd want to be able to see. But what I did was I just brought over the opportunities object over here. Once I did that, it actually did a quick extract. Now this particular, I think, demo org only has about 2,000 or 3,000 opportunities. So the extract only took probably about 15 or 20 seconds to come over. And then once I had the extract come over, I had all the different fields. We actually will show them to you based on relationships. So I can see fields related to accounts, to opportunities owned by, from that perspective. So what this viz is basically showing me is, and I'm going to do this here, and I pre-built it before we did the call, is I drug over a close date for all of my opportunities. And then I created down here in opportunities, I have a discount percentage, but I created a dimension for that. So that was really easy to do. I could just drag it up to dimensions up here. And what I wanted to do was to build a really simple bubble chart that would show me every opportunity it would show me based on the discount and my opportunities that are like, these are 25% discount opportunities. These may be, going a little bit down lower from that perspective based on discount, the close date. And then I did a few things that Tableau is really good at. One was I brought the amount of the opportunity over here to size. And so each one of these bubbles, the bigger the bubble, the bigger the opportunity. So it allows me to kind of drill in and see these different opportunities. Then I created a calculation. And again, this is something that's super easy for Tableau to do. I went in here and my calc field is down here. So I'll drag it up here. And I just wrote a really simple if-then statement because I wanted to group, I wanted close loss, close won, and open records. So if I go to, in this case, if I go to close and close is true and one is true, well, then that was one. If it's true and false, then it was lost. Or if it is anything else, then it's still open and it's an open opportunity. So it's pretty simple approach. And I could do some things like dress color and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead to here and tell it I want it to use the entire view. Now that changed this view a little bit because it no longer scrolls back and forth and my dots got really small.
Right.
But you'll see here in a minute why I did that. So I'll go ahead and I'll save that. And I did this in desktop and now I'm ready to go to server. I'll go ahead and publish this workbook up to the server. And I've got a Tableau online server here that I created. It's telling me, hey, I'm going to overwrite this. I've embedded my credentials in here. I'll go ahead and publish that. It's going to ask me if I want to overwrite it. I'll go ahead and say, yeah, I'm good with that. And then what actually happens down here on my other screen is I'll drag that up or bring it up so you can see it. Is now I'm all published. And so I have this dashboard up here on my Tableau server. And I can actually now go get the share URL, which we talked about earlier with the LWC, and I can just copy that over. So
That's
now
don't just copy the URL from your browser. You have to
absolutely, yeah. You want to get this share URL. That's there's some reasons why you want this share URL. It's built into the LWC that way. So now what I do is I come back over here and let me bring this guy up to our window. And I had actually already embedded this, but what I'm going to do here is for ease of use, I'm going to go to edit page. And you notice that I'm on the account and not the opportunity. So there's a reason why I did that. And you'll see my craziness here in just a second. And if I go to sales, you'll see, and I click on this, here's the URL that I copied over when I copied it over. And then down here under the filtering, I said, hey, if the account ID, in this case, ID account, which is the way Tableau saw it, is equal to the account ID that I have on the opportunity record, then go ahead and filter this. And then I could do some things like, hey, I don't want to see the toolbar. I don't want to, I could hide the toolbar. And then at this point, I could save it. And then when I go back over, and there's a lot of things I didn't do here. Like I didn't put I've got a title in here. I would have gotten rid of this, this legend right here and made it a little bit more cleaner, but you get the general idea there. And then if I go back here to the opportunity, I go to sales, then you see here's my little opportunity. It's filtered based on Ohana. I've got a couple of lost deals and I've got one open deal here. It tells me this one's a discount at 5% with an amount of 44,000 and is scheduled to close in August.
Nice.
Yeah. So you could, if I was doing this, I would do a much cleaner. If we had a little bit more time, I'd show you a little bit more formatting that I'd do in Tableau. But it gives you that general idea of how I can connect to my Salesforce data, bring it over into Tableau, find some type of an insight. Then, if I want to, surface that back over into Salesforce and even filter that back down so I can see those insights.
That's pretty powerful. And I mean, and you can place that. I mean, this is a good example of accounts and opportunities that you want to see pretty regularly. But I mean, literally, there's no limit to what objects you could put that on, even if it's like a custom object. And so as long as there's the data on the Tableau side matches it and makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
And I do have something while we're on this subject, since I know this is more for salesforce.org, but I wanted to make sure before we moved away, because I have this one here. One of the things that Tableau has is we have a foundation that where we work specifically with nonprofits and people out there that are doing good in the world. And we could spend 3 hours or 3 days talking about all the cool things that people have done with Tableau, especially helping out with good and stuff like that. But I wanted you to at least be aware that if you went to if you Googled it or went to tableau.com/foundation, you'll see the things that we do here are different initiatives. But down here at the bottom, we do have, depending on the type of organization you are, we have either the ability for you to get donated licenses for your nonprofit, or you could also get a very much reduced rate if you need to buy licenses for your nonprofit or salesforce.org. And then we also have this really cool thing that I've participated in before. And these are volunteers, not just Tableau employees, but these are volunteers from anywhere in the Tableau community where they provide time to people that want to use Tableau and then use Tableau for good. And then you can actually get a session. They'll help you polish your dashboards or help you get started and stuff like that. And we do have Tableau Public, which we did not talk about in your diagram. But if you were doing something where you were creating something that the whole world can see, like say, for instance, a COVID-19 dashboard or something like that, with Tableau Public, we don't have to worry about access. You don't have to worry about authentication because everything is public. You can use the LWC as is, and then the data you're just storing up on Tableau Public. So it's another cool thing there too.
Love Tableau Public, and I'm glad you brought this up because this was actually before I even worked for Salesforce. This was one of the ways I started to learn a little bit about Tableau because, like you said, it's you have to use publicly available data, and then any dashboards or anything that you create have to also be available to the public, right? But even just going down, it's public.tableau.com for anyone that's interested. But you can even just scrolling down and seeing some of the dashboards that other people have created. It's pretty amazing, and yeah, I love that. And so Tableau Foundation, the service core, is that on a is that a pro bono thing where somebody would?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you got Tableau skills and you want to join the service core, there should be information on here on how to join. If not, just reach out to somebody on the foundation team. And then if you're needing help, just request a session from the service core. What they do is they sometimes, pre-COVID, we would actually try to sometimes get people that were close to you. So if it made sense, you could do some of these face-to-face. Now in the world of virtual, anybody's there to help you. But that's definitely a place where we'll help you get started using Tableau and stuff like that. So,
and that's important too for nonprofits because giving away free licenses is great, but then it also can be overwhelming sometimes if you don't have somebody on staff that knows how to build dashboards or is really skilled with it. And having even just a couple quick sessions or something where somebody walks you through, here's what you can do, here's how you can analyze your data. And then here's how you can use the free licenses you got to their fullest extent. That's an awesome service to provide.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm big. It was one of the big reasons I came to work for Tableau was the foundation and what we do to give back. And then when we became part of the Salesforce family, it was one of the places of intersection between the Salesforce approach to helping people out in Tableau that was really exciting because we were already in fact, we modeled a lot of what we did with the Tableau Foundation based on what Salesforce had done, years before we even became part of Salesforce. So
awesome. All right. Well,
I'm going to stop presenting and I don't know what else we've got to cover, but I think we've covered a lot.
We have, and this has been great. So we'll wrap up. So like I said, for additional resources, we've got the Architect Academy Roundtables group and some blog posts about integrating Salesforce with Tableau that actually talk about the Lightning Web Component you saw a demo of today. Put the link to the Lightning Web Component on the App Exchange here. And what we'll also do, like I said, I'll add some other links for like Tableau Public and the Foundation and everything else. We'll put them in the related materials below for anybody else that's interested in checking those things out. And
yeah,
with that, thanks to John for joining, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. This has been a great session, and looking forward to hopefully this one was helpful for everyone, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.